In terms of the most successful people with high net worth, tech billionaires such as Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, and Bill Gates dominate the top spots today. However, the richest man in modern history to hold the position till this decade died about a century ago. It has taken a century of technological advancement for anyone to catch up to this great businessman and philanthropist. It was John Davidson Rockefeller, an American business magnate, considered the wealthiest American of all time and the arguably richest person in modern history. His company Standard Oil was worth at least $1 trillion before its breakup due to monopolistic reasons in 1911. It would likely be more if adjusted for inflation. So, how did he do it? His journey to enormous success had a very humble beginning. John Rockefeller was born in upstate New York to a traveling physician and snake oil salesman William Avery Rockefeller and Eliza Davidson Rockefeller, in the year 1839. Growing up, John was helping his mother with regular household chores and earned extra money raising turkeys, selling potatoes and candy. He learned how to hustle people for the best deal possible and maximize the value of every single dollar he had. Over the next few decades, he became the wealthiest man of his time, and arguably the wealthiest in history, reigning over a monopoly that refined as much as 90% of America's oil. John followed his father's advice to trade dishes for platters, and always got the better part of any deal. His greatest ambitions were to earn $100,000 and live 100 years. He surpassed the $100,000 target soon, but fell short by just 3 years to complete a lifespan of 100 years. John dropped out of school at the age of 16 to work as a bookkeeper for a local broker, Hewitt and Tuttle, in September 1855. His starting salary was a mere $14 per month. In the next 2 years, Rockefeller soon impressed his employers with his seriousness and diligence. He grew in his job, and soon took charge of difficult deals and started venturing into commodity trading. He arranged complicated transportation deals that typically involved moving a single shipment of freight by railroad, canal, and lake boats. He would carry through very complicated deals without hesitation. This combination of caution, precision, and resolve soon brought him attention and respect in the broader business community in Cleveland. He learned a lot during this, which helped him later in his business dealings. It's no doubt that Rockefeller was an enterprising man. In 1859, at the age of 20, he established his first enterprise with his partner Maurice Clark, a commission business dealing in hay, grain, meats, and other goods. Each of them contributed $2,000 to start this business. At the end of the first year of business, they had grossed $450,000, making a profit of $4,400 in 1860 and a profit of $17,000 in 1861. This was a difficult time. The U.S. economy was struggling due to the recession in 1857. But John's business abilities were evident in the fact that his company grew exponentially and profitably even when the rest of the economy was in decline. He not only survived, but he also flourished. One of the famous John D. Rockefeller quotes says, "The way to make money is to buy when blood is running in the streets." In 1859, the first U.S. oil well was discovered less than 100 miles east of Cleveland. This discovery changed Rockefeller's life completely. This was the start of Pennsylvania's oil boom. As with every new breakthrough or discovery, it spread like wildfire, and many companies hopped on board. Since gasoline cars had not yet been produced, oil was not as valuable as it is today, but it could still be converted to kerosene, which was then used in lamps. It wasn't long before John figured that the best way to make money off oil was to refine it. He would rather let other people go through the trouble of finding the oil, and he would just buy it from them. He built his first oil refinery, Standard Oil Company, near Cleveland, in 1863. By this time the rail lines were let out connecting Pennsylvania's oil resources with Cleveland. Rockefeller was very meticulous in making decisions. His refineries were near the Atlantic and Great Western Railroad, which linked Cleveland to New York, Pennsylvania, and other oil locations. John's decision to locate the refinery near the railroad earned him a competitive edge. Because of the convenient location, he saved on transportation and served more customers. Within 2 years, it was the largest refinery in the area, and Rockefeller quickly became the most successful oil refiner in the United States. It had grown to be one of Cleveland's most valuable assets, worth over $75,000 at the time. Rockefeller's business strategy was to achieve economies of scale by refining oil in large batches. He put together a team of highly experienced chemists and engineers to not only improve the efficiency of the process of refining petroleum but also came up with a variety of innovative applications for the byproducts like paraffin wax, tar, and naphtha. At that time, his competitors were throwing the waste. But he figured out this way to reduce the waste and sell the byproducts like paraffin, benzene, naphtha, and wax as separate products. That's how he monetized even his waste to increase efficiency. His company had its own warehouses, barrel-making plant, drayage service, holding tank, and even manufactured its own sulfuric acid that is used during the refining process. Precision and foresight were the cornerstones of Rockefeller's success. Impressive, isn't it? This allowed Rockefeller to produce oil at a lower cost than his competitors. The Standard Oil Company grew rapidly, and soon it controlled 90% of the oil refining market in the United States. Rockefeller's business empire continued to grow in the early 1870s. In 1871, Rockefeller merged the Standard Oil Company with several of its competitors to form the Standard Oil Trust. The Standard Oil Trust controlled the majority of the oil refining market in the United States. He used aggressive business tactics to grow his business and eliminate competitors. He would lower the price of oil and kerosene by as much as 80% to eliminate competitors as they won't be able to survive. He also formed strategic alliances with other companies, which helped him to consolidate his power and gain a monopoly over the oil industry. In 1882, he reincorporated in New Jersey, this time founding the Standard Oil Trust, which in turn held shares in more than 40 local businesses. By 1885, John had acquired most of his rivals, leaving only a few. He had the comparative advantages, so he could negotiate to find the best rebates, the deals, and agreements with the railroad systems. To add icing on top, John and his partners had even created specific pipelines which were meant for the exclusive transport of crude oil and the finished products. These exclusive deals got the transport costs to an all-time low with minimum waste. At this point, John was sufficiently influential that he would personally negotiate incentives with the owners of the major rail companies. His business empire included 20,000 domestic wells, 4,000 miles of pipeline, 5,000 tank cars, and over 100,000 employees at one time. Many people in the business world were concerned by these backroom dealings and the company's monopoly. Over the course of the following decade, individuals in the business world, political arena, and the media would launch more vicious attacks against Standard Oil. Ohio lawmakers began drafting antitrust rules to bring Rockefeller to justice, but he was already one step ahead of them in their efforts to bring him down. The Sherman Antitrust Act was approved by the federal government in 1890, allowing legislators to finally take on the Standard Oil Trust. But the government was unable to break up Standard Oil until 1911 because of the difficulty of investigating the legal structure of all the firms. Eventually, in 1911, the Supreme Court ruled that Standard Oil had engaged in anti-competitive behavior and divided the firm into 34 independent corporations. However, by that time, John Rockefeller had already cashed in his profits and was no longer directly involved in the management of the company. In 1916, John became the first billionaire in the world. In its last 20 years, his company paid over $500 million in dividends. According to some estimates, Standard Oil was worth more than $1 trillion at its peak. After Standard Oil was broken up by the federal government, many of its spin-offs become today's most powerful oil companies, including all or part of ConocoPhillips, BP, Chevron, and ExxonMobil. Rockefeller was still holding his stakes in all the companies, and that got him most of the profits and made him the richest person in the world. It is believed that John Rockefeller's net worth was $400 billion because of his ownership of these successor enterprises. By the time Rockefeller died in 1937, his assets equaled 2% of America's national economy. Only in 2021 Elon Musk matched Rockefeller, breaking his 80-plus-year streak. That's not all. Rockefeller was not only a great businessman, but he was a great philanthropist as well. Rockefeller was involved in charities since his first job as a clerk at age 16, when he gave 6% of his earnings to charity, as recorded in his personal ledger. By the time he was 20, his charity exceeded 10% of his income. As Rockefeller's wealth grew, so did his giving, primarily to educational and public health causes, but also for basic science and the arts. He founded major philanthropic institutions, the University of Chicago in 1892, the Rockefeller Institute for Medical Research in New York City in 1901, the General Education Board in 1902, and the Rockefeller Foundation in 1913. His legacy continued as he made a significant contribution to society. It's amazing to know how people have made it big from humble beginnings. Isn't it? One of John D. Rockefeller's quotes says, "If you want to succeed, you should strike out on new paths, rather than travel the worn paths of accepted success." Hope you enjoyed this video. See you soon in the next video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell icon to see more of these inspiring stories.